Be me, Dana, 38, feminist. Senior editor at a publishing house that matters. We don't print fantasy novels or self-help trash. We publish the big books, the ones that end up in newspaper reviews and shape the conversation. My life is a testament to making the right choices. The kind of choices most women are too scared to make. My apartment is in a converted warehouse downtown. High ceilings, exposed brick, a single fiddle leaf fig tree that I haven't killed yet. It's clean, quiet, and entirely mine. No husband leaving his socks on the floor. No kid smearing fingerprints on my glass coffee table. My only dependent is a sleek black cat I adopted from a shelter. He's independent, like me. We coexist. My social media feed is an art installation dedicated to the successful, unburdened woman. Here's me on a solo hike, caption about finding my own path. Here's a screenshot of an article about the mental load of women, with my added commentary on refusing to perform unpaid labor. Here's a picture of my desk at 9 p.m., bathed in the glow of the monitor, #girlboss. I've built this life brick by brick, and I'm proud of the fortress I've created. Work is my kingdom. I run a team of editors, and I run it well. I don't tolerate excuses, especially from the men. I can spot toxic masculinity from a mile away. The way they interrupt you in meetings, the way they repeat your idea, but louder. Mansplaining is a blood sport in our conference room, and I'm the reigning champion. A junior editor tried to explain a marketing term to me last week. I just stared at him, held up a hand, and said, "I know what a KPI is, thanks." He turned red and didn't speak for the rest of the meeting. That's how you establish dominance. That's how you survive. My current obsession, my white whale, is a writer named Eugene. He's about 30, maybe a little older, an investigative journalist who made a name for himself with a series of articles on corporate corruption. He's smart, he's sharp, and he's annoyingly handsome in a rugged intellectual way. He has a book proposal out, and every publisher in the city is fighting for it. I want it. I need it. He isn't just another author, he's a peer, an equal. The kind of man you build an empire with, not the kind you build a picket fence with. This project is more than just a job, it's a statement. The only person who seems unimpressed by any of this is David from the sales department. He's probably around 40, maybe a bit more. He has that tired, settled look of a man who gave up on his dreams a decade ago. His desk is a shrine to domesticity. A coffee mug that says "World's Best Dad." A framed photo of two messy-looking kids and a smiling, plain-faced wife. He's always leaving at 5 p.m. on the dot. I once heard him on the phone, earnestly discussing the pros and cons of different brands of diapers. I look at him and feel a profound sense of pity. He's a walking cautionary tale. A man trapped in the patriarchal prison he helped build. He represents everything I fought so hard to escape. Sometime in the spring, the company decided I needed an assistant. I argued against it. I'm self-sufficient. I don't need someone to fetch my coffee. But HR insisted. It was a new company-wide initiative. Her name was Ava. She was 23. Fresh out of some liberal arts college, bright-eyed and full of a kind of naive optimism I found exhausting. She showed up on her first day in a floral dress and sensible flats. She had a pen and a notepad and looked at me like I was a celebrity. I decided I would mentor her. I would show her what a powerful woman looks like. I'd deprogram her from all the fairy tales she'd been fed. My first big move was to schedule a preliminary meeting with Eugene. I finally got him to agree to come into the office. I spent 2 days preparing. I reread every article he'd ever written. I put together a deck outlining my vision for his book. I prepared counter-arguments for every possible objection he could have. He walked into my office, and he was even more impressive in person. Tall, confident, with a firm handshake. We sat down. The conversation was good. He was sharp, and I was sharper. I was laying out my editorial strategy, showing him that I understood his work on a molecular level. I was winning. There was a soft knock on the door. Ava peeked her head in. "Sorry to interrupt, Dana. I just made a fresh pot of coffee, and I picked up some of these from that little Italian bakery, Mr. Eugene. I read in an old interview that you had a sweet tooth." She held out a small box of cannolis. I felt a flash of annoyance. I didn't ask her to do this. This wasn't part of the plan. Eugene, who had been leaning forward intently, suddenly relaxed. He leaned back in his chair, and a genuine, unguarded smile spread across his face. "No way," he chuckled. You dug that up? That's amazing. And please, call me Eugene. He took a cannoli and gestured for her to come in. For the next 5 minutes, my meticulously planned meeting was derailed. He wasn't talking to me about his book. He was talking to her about bakeries. He asked her where she was from, what she studied in college. She told him she was from a small town and loved to read, and she was just so excited to be working here. He listened to her with this focused, amused expression. I sat behind my large, imposing desk, feeling like a piece of furniture. I cleared my throat. Well, as I was saying about the chapter structure, Eugene turned back to me, his professional mask back in place, but the energy in the room had shifted. The connection I thought I was building had vanished. I told myself it was nothing. He was just being polite to the office junior. Men like him appreciate a powerful mind, not a plate of pastries. A couple of weeks later, Eugene started coming into the office more regularly to work on the final proposal. He didn't have a permanent desk, so he used one of the empty cubicles near my section. And I started to notice a pattern. Every morning he'd arrive, and the first place he'd stop was Ava's desk. Not mine, hers. He'd lean against the partition, coffee in hand, and just chat with her. I couldn't always hear what they were saying, but I could hear her light, tinkling laugh. One afternoon, I was working on some cover concepts for a different book. I saw Eugene walk over to Ava's desk and show her the mock-ups on his tablet. I watched them for a solid minute, him pointing at the screen, her nodding, and offering her thoughts. I finally got up and walked over. If you need a second opinion, Eugene, my door's always open. I've been doing this for 15 years. He looked up, seeming surprised to see me there. Oh, hey Dana. Yeah, I know. I just wanted to get a layman's perspective, you know? Someone outside the industry bubble. Ava's got a great eye. Ava blushed and looked down at her keyboard, suddenly very interested in her email. I felt a hot, prickling sensation on the back of my neck. I gave a tight smile and retreated to my office. I started giving Ava more work, busy work, transcribing hours of interview tapes, fact-checking dense manuscripts, organizing the digital archives, a project everyone else had been avoiding for years. I told myself it was for her own development, to learn the nuts and bolts of the industry. But a small, ugly part of me just wanted to see her buried in so much work, she wouldn't have time to laugh with Eugene by the water cooler. It didn't work. She just did it all, efficiently and without complaint. She'd stay late, and sometimes when I'd be leaving, I'd see Eugene had stayed late too, bringing her a sandwich or just keeping her company while she finished up. The situation was starting to feel like it was slipping out of my control. I had to reassert my position. One Thursday morning, I saw a window of opportunity. Eugene was at his desk, looking focused. Ava was away from hers, probably running an errand for someone. I walked over, my posture perfect, my voice calm and professional. Eugene, I've cleared my schedule for lunch tomorrow. I've booked us a table at that steakhouse you mentioned. It's time we sat down and hammered out the final details of the marketing plan. Just the two of us. It was a power move. I was setting the time, the place, the agenda. He didn't look up from his screen right away. He finished typing a sentence. Then he finally turned his head. Oh, can't tomorrow. Sorry, Dana. I kept my smile in place. Something important came up? Yeah, kind of. Ava's birthday is on Saturday, so I promised I'd take her out for a birthday lunch tomorrow. We're going to that little ramen place she's been talking about. He said it so casually, so matter-of-factly, like it was the most natural thing in the world to blow off a crucial strategy meeting with his senior editor for a bowl of noodles with a 23-year-old assistant. He didn't offer to reschedule. He just turned back to his monitor. I stood there for a second, feeling completely invisible. I walked back to my office and closed the door. I looked at my reflection in the dark screen of my second monitor. My face looked sharp, my makeup was perfect, my blazer was impeccably tailored, I looked powerful, I looked successful, and I looked very, very tired. Later that afternoon, I was in the office kitchen waiting for the kettle to boil. David, the sales guy, was there, packing up his things for the day. It was 4:58 p.m. His phone rang. He answered it, and his entire demeanor softened. Hey, honey, he said, his voice low and warm. Yeah, I'm just leaving now. No, I'll pick it up. Do we need the big box or the small one this time? Okay, got it. Tell Mikey I'll be home in time to build the Lego spaceship with him. I love you too. He hung up and caught me looking at him. He gave a small, self-conscious shrug. The glamour of married life. For a moment, I forgot my carefully constructed disdain for him. "Your son likes Legos?" I asked. My nephew was into them. It was the only thing I could think of to say. "Loves them," David said, a real smile reaching his eyes. "He's obsessed. My wife got him the new space station set. He's been waiting all week for me to build it with him." He talked for another minute about his kids, about a funny thing his daughter said, about the chaos of his weekends. It wasn't exciting, it wasn't ambitious, it was just life, a life completely alien to my own. I gave a non-committal nod and grabbed my tea. As I walked back to my desk, my old thoughts resurfaced. He was whipped, trapped. His entire existence revolved around the needs of other people. That's what I told myself. It was the only narrative that made sense. It was the only way to make my own empty, silent apartment feel like a choice, not a consequence. The weeks crawled by. The proposal was finalized. The negotiations were completed. I did my job. I secured the book. On paper, it was a massive victory for me. The CEO sent out a company-wide email congratulating my team, with a special mention of my tenacious leadership. My colleagues stopped by my office to offer their congratulations. It all felt hollow, because I knew that, while I was buried in contract clauses and budget meetings, Eugene was spending his free time with Ava. I'd see them leaving for lunch together. I'd hear them making plans for the weekend. She'd brought him into her world of trivia nights at dive bars, picnics in the park, and browsing through secondhand bookstores. He seemed to love it. He seemed lighter, younger. He was still professional with me. We had meetings, we discussed the manuscript. He respected my opinion. But that was it. There was a wall there, the easy warmth, the friendly banter, the intellectual spark I thought we'd had. That was all reserved for her. I felt like I was losing a game I didn't even know I was playing. I started to analyze Ava, trying to understand her power. It wasn't her looks. She was pretty, yes, but in a simple, girl-next-door way. She wasn't a bombshell. It wasn't her intelligence. She was smart enough, but she wasn't a genius. She didn't challenge him or debate him. She just listened. She'd ask him about his day and seemed genuinely interested in the answer. She'd remember a tiny detail he mentioned weeks ago. She'd laugh at his bad jokes. She was his cheerleader, his refuge. And I was his boss, his intellectual sparring partner, the woman who corrected his grammar in an email. I had spent my entire adult life learning how to be a man's equal in the boardroom. I had never learned how to be his peace at the end of the day. I started to feel a bitterness I'd never experienced before. It was a sour taste at the back of my throat. I looked at her and saw everything I'd been taught to despise. A woman who made herself agreeable. A woman who put a man's comfort before her own ambition. I told myself she was weak, that she was playing a long, manipulative game, using outdated feminine wiles to trap a successful man, that she was setting the feminist movement back by 50 years. But late at night, alone in my silent apartment, another thought would creep in. What if she was just happy? What if this was what genuine connection looked like? It was a terrifying thought, because if she was right, then I had been wrong about everything. My entire life, my entire identity, was built on the foundation that my path was the superior one. And now, a 23-year-old in a floral dress was making me question it all. The company decided to throw a party to celebrate the new acquisition. A proper one, at a trendy bar downtown with an open tab. This, I decided, would be my night. This was a professional event, my territory. Ava, with her soft skills and her gentle demeanor, would fade into the background. I would be in my element. I would be the center of attention, the architect of this success. I would remind Eugene who the real power player was. I spent 2 hours getting ready. I chose a dress that was severe and elegant. A black sheath that was all sharp angles. It wasn't a dress designed to be approachable. It was a dress designed to be admired from a distance. My hair was pulled back in a sleek, tight bun. My makeup was a mask of corporate perfection. When I walked into the bar, I felt like a general surveying her battlefield. I saw my colleagues, the junior editors, the marketing team. They all greeted me with respect, with a touch of awe. I accepted their congratulations with a cool, professional smile. I scanned the room for Eugene, and my perfectly constructed confidence began to crack. He was there, and so was Ava. She wasn't wearing a floral dress. She was in a simple dark blue cocktail dress. Her hair was down. She looked beautiful, effortlessly, incandescently beautiful. She was laughing, and Eugene was standing next to her, looking down at her with an expression that made my stomach clench. It was a look of pure, unadulterated adoration. I had never had a man look at me like that, not once in my 38 years. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked towards the bar. One of the VPs stopped me. He was a portly man in his late 50s named Richard. "Dana, there she is, the woman of the hour," he boomed, clapping me on the shoulder a little too hard. "Brilliant work on this. Absolutely brilliant. You're a shark." I forced a smile. "Thank you, Richard. It was a team effort." It was the right thing to say, the corporate thing, but the word shark echoed in my head. Is that what I was? A cold, solitary predator. I got a glass of expensive wine and found a spot where I could observe. I watched them. Eugene and Ava. They weren't attached at the hip, but they were a unit, a gravitational center around which others orbited. People would come up to them, talk for a bit, and then drift away, leaving them in their bubble. Eugene would have his hand on the small of her back. She would lean in to hear him over the music. Small, intimate gestures that screamed, "we" and "us." I saw David, the sales guy, standing with some of his team. He looked out of place in the trendy bar, his off-the-rack suit a little too big in the shoulders. He was checking his watch, probably anxious to get home and relieve the babysitter. The CEO, a tall, imposing man named Mr. Harrison, clinked a glass to get everyone's attention. The music died down. "Good evening, everyone," he started, his voice resonating through the room. "I just want to say a few words to celebrate this incredible new partnership." He talked about the company's vision, about the importance of bold new voices. Then he got to the thank yous. "I want to extend a huge thank you to the entire editorial team," he said, gesturing vaguely in my direction. "And of course, to their fearless leader, Dana. Her strategic insight and relentless pursuit of excellence were instrumental in getting this deal across the finish line." There was a round of polite, professional applause. I nodded my head, acknowledging it. It was what I had expected, but he wasn't finished. "And I also want to give a special personal thank you to someone who truly went above and beyond," he continued, his voice warming. "Someone who embodies the spirit of collaboration and hospitality we pride ourselves on." He smiled directly at Ava. "Ava, your positivity and dedication have been a joy to watch. You didn't just assist on this project. You made our new author feel like part of the family from day one. I've heard nothing but glowing reviews. Let's give her a big round of applause." The applause this time was different. It was louder, warmer, more genuine. People were turning to smile at her. She blushed a deep crimson and looked at the floor. Eugene put an arm around her shoulders and gave her a proud squeeze. My own applause felt like I was clapping with wooden hands. I was the shark who closed the deal. She was the heart that made him want to stay. I suddenly felt a desperate need to talk to him, to prove that I was still relevant. I drained my wine and made my way through the crowd. "Eugene," I said, my voice a little louder than I intended. He turned to me, his smile polite but distant. Ava took a small step back, giving us space. "Dana, great party," he said. "It is," I agreed. "I was just thinking about the publicity tour. We need to start mapping out the key media appearances for the first month." I was talking shop. I was on safe ground here. "Yeah, absolutely," he said, but his eyes were already drifting back towards Ava. "We can sync up about that next week. No need to talk about work tonight." "Of course," I said quickly. "I just want to say, personally, I'm thrilled to be working with you." "Likewise," he said. The word was a perfectly polished hollow stone. An awkward silence fell between us. He wasn't going to help me. He wasn't going to ask me a question or tell a joke or do anything to bridge the gap. He was just waiting for me to leave. I felt my face flush. "Well," I said, my professional mask feeling heavy and brittle. "Enjoy the rest of your evening." I turned and walked away without waiting for a response. I felt hundreds of eyes on my back, even though I knew no one was watching me at all. I got another glass of wine and stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the city lights. I could see the traffic moving on the streets below, a river of red and white. Thousands of people, all going somewhere, going home. A woman appeared in the reflection of the glass next to me. She was pretty, with kind eyes and a warm smile. She looked to be about my age. "You must be Dana," she said. "I'm Sarah, David's wife." I turned, startled. It was the woman from the photo on his desk. David was standing right behind her, holding 2 glasses of water. "Honey, this is my boss, Dana," he said. "It's a pleasure to meet you," Sarah said, extending a hand. Her handshake was firm and warm. "David talks about you all the time. He says you're the sharpest person he's ever met." I didn't know what to say. "He does?" "All the time," she confirmed, smiling at her husband. David just shrugged, looking slightly embarrassed. "Well, it's true. We should probably head out soon," Sarah said to him. "The sitter has an early class tomorrow." "Yeah, you're right," he said. He turned to me. "It was a great event, Dana. Congratulations again. You really earned this one." "Thank you, David," I managed to say. "It was lovely meeting you," Sarah said to me. And then they were gone. He put his arm around her waist as they walked towards the exit. She leaned her head on his shoulder. They fit together. They looked content. And it hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't just observing 2 different life paths tonight. I was observing 2 different kinds of partnership. Eugene and Ava were at the beginning of something, full of passion, excitement, and discovery, the shiny new phase. David and Sarah were in the middle of it. The part that comes after the initial excitement fades, the part built on shared history, quiet understanding, and the decision to face the mundane realities of life, like babysitters and grocery runs, together. Both pairs had something I didn't: connection. I stood there, in my expensive dress, in the middle of a party celebrating my professional triumph, and I had never felt so profoundly alone. The room was loud, full of laughter and conversation, but all I could hear was a deafening silence in my own head. My career was my partner, my ambition was my companion, but tonight I realized they couldn't keep me warm. They couldn't put an arm around me and make the world feel a little less lonely. I looked across the room one last time. Eugene was whispering something in Ava's ear. She laughed, a real, uninhibited laugh, and playfully swatted his arm. He caught her hand and didn't let go. I turned and left. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I just slipped out the door and into the cool night air. The taxi ride home was a blur. The driver tried to make small talk, but I just stared out the window at the passing city. My apartment, usually my sanctuary, felt like a museum. A sterile exhibition of a life that was supposed to be perfect. The silence was suffocating. I opened the fridge and saw a bottle of champagne a friend had given me a few months ago. "To your next big win," the card had said. This was it. The big win. I took the bottle out but didn't open it. Who would I share it with? My cat? He meowed and rubbed against my leg. For once, his aloofness didn't feel like companionship. It just felt like 2 separate beings sharing a space. I walked into my bedroom and sat on the edge of my perfectly made bed. I caught my reflection in the mirror, the severe dress, the tight bun, the mask of makeup. I looked like a stranger. I thought about my 20s when I was just starting out. I was so full of fire, so certain. I'd watch the older women in the office, the ones who were married with kids. I'd listen to them talk about parent-teacher conferences and pediatrician appointments, and I would feel a smug sense of superiority. I was different. I was going to have a career. I was going to be important. I wasn't going to let a man or a family derail me. I saw relationships as a distraction, marriage as a trap, children as the end of a woman's life. I dated, of course, but always on my terms. I dated men who were as ambitious as I was, which meant we were both too busy for a real relationship. Or I dated men who were less successful, whom I could control and ultimately discard when they became inconvenient. I never let anyone get too close. Intimacy was a vulnerability I couldn't afford. I thought I was winning. All this time, I thought I was climbing a ladder to the top. But tonight, I finally looked down and realized I had been climbing the wrong wall entirely. And I was 38 years old. The men my age, the good ones, the ones like David, they were already gone. They'd gotten married in their late 20s or early 30s to women who hadn't treated them like a competitor. Women who had been willing to build a life with them, not alongside them. What was left for me? Divorced men with baggage. Men who were still single at 40 for a very good reason. Men who only wanted someone younger. The market had changed, and I had completely misread it. My feminist ideals, my career-first mantra, they had been my shield. They had protected me from rejection and heartbreak. But a shield can also be a cage. I had protected myself so well that I had locked myself in. I pulled my phone from my clutch. My hands were shaking slightly. I opened the dating app I occasionally scrolled through out of boredom or loneliness. My profile was a carbon copy of my social media, me looking powerful and independent, me on top of a mountain, me giving a talk at a conference. My bio read, ambitious independent woman looking for an equal partner to conquer the world with, no drama. My preferences were surgically precise. Age, 30 to 42. Education, master's degree or higher. Profession, something impressive. Status, never married, no kids. I had been swiping through the same limited pool of men for years. The handsome tech bros who were allergic to commitment. The finance guys who worked 80-hour weeks. The other sharks. It had never worked, not once. I stared at my own profile for a long time. It felt like I was looking at a character I had created. With a deep, shuddering breath, I went into the settings. I deleted the bio completely. Then I went to the preferences. My thumb hovered over the age range. I thought about Eugene, 30, falling for Ava, 23. I thought about David, around 40, happy with his wife who was his own age. My own pool of equals was shrinking by the day. I slid the lower end of the age range up. 30, 32, 35, 38. I slid the upper end, 42, 45, 48, 50. I stopped, 38 to 50. My peers, my actual peers. Then I scrolled down to the deal breakers, the things I had been so certain about. Marital status. I changed never married to doesn't matter. The last one was the hardest. Children. The symbol of the life I had rejected. The anchor I never wanted. My finger hovered over the options. Doesn't have kids. Open to kids. I thought of David's face when he talked about building a Lego spaceship with his son. A life filled with small, messy, inconvenient joys. A life filled with love. I closed my eyes and tapped open to kids. I hit save changes. The app refreshed. The screen filled with a new landscape of faces. They weren't the polished, professionally photographed men from my old feed. These were men with laugh lines, men with tired eyes, men with receding hairlines. There was a man in his late 40s, smiling awkwardly, with two teenage daughters standing beside him. There was a man holding up a large, unappealing fish. There was a man whose profile picture was a blurry photo of him at a barbecue, a beer in his hand and a kid on his shoulders. This was it. This was the reality. The wall wasn't something I had hit. It was something I had built, and I was finally on the other side. I wasn't conquering the world. I was just a woman in a silent apartment, starting over.